I spend a lot of time in a Gilded Age mansion. The house is called Belcourt. It's off the famous Bellevue Avenue in Newport, Rhode Island. Built for a divorced bachelor in 1895, it has been recently restored and has a fascinating history. If you're just coming to Belcourt, you've never been to Belcourt, and you come into the dining room, how would you explain it to someone?
This magnificent classical room is based on the Hall of Mirrors of Versailles with alternating columns and mirrors. Of course, it's much smaller. And it's an oval room, and as you can see, all of the mirrors alternate with columns, which are basically Corinthian, but they're unique because in the center of the capitals are swans. And one of the reasons that those existed, according to the traditions, was that this property went down to Almy Pond, and Oliver Belmont had a collection of swans there.
What do you mean a collection of swans?
Well, he was an animal lover, as you know.
I do know that, yeah.
He loved
He
horses.
had a menagerie.
He had a menagerie, and when his property bordered Almy Pond, there were swans on it, although it's brackish water.
Huh. Swans are cool too because swans are very loyal to their partners. So they probably would have come here over and over again, the two swans, and made a little family in that Almy Pond.
And he may have taken them out and taken them to Long Island while he was there too, because remember, this was a summer house. It was only used 6 weeks out of the year.
You think he had someone who just gathered swans?
I think he
A
found
swan
a
gatherer?
breeder that bred them. His father also collected animals, and his father came from a part of Germany. They were very much about swans, and they're also symbols of, I don't know, I can't remember what the swan is symbol of, but you can look it up online.
So there's this great swan at the top of every column.
Yes, and the ceiling is an oval dome, which was indirectly lighted by Thomas Edison, who did his first experiment with indirect lighting here. And the original bulbs were still here when I was here.
Yeah. We have some of the original bulbs still up there.
And they had to be replaced when Alva rewired the house for alternating current, because the original system was direct current. And so she, instead of trying to redo the original fixtures, she put a new set. And then when the Tinneys came in, they put another new set of ordinary bulbs in there from the 1950s.
And of course, when Miss Raphalian restored this room, we put LED lights up there. So there's a strip of LED dimmable lights that are up there.
The other thing about the ceiling is in the center is Apollo the sun god driving his chariot through the sky. And then it's the same girl in different moods around.
Yeah, I love that muse, you know? I love the muse, you know?
She is
beautiful woman.
And I'm wondering whether she was modeled after Caroline, Oliver's mother,
Oh,
who was one of the most beautiful hostesses in Newport before when
That's
they
right.
owned By the Sea.
yeah. Caroline Slidell
Caroline
Perry.
Slide, that's correct. And that was an auspicious union with August Belmont
Sure.
for a lot of reasons.
Huh.
Also, there are the various birds in different positions, the parrots, but they're not.
Yeah.
There's
like
another
birds of paradise.
birds of paradise.
Yes.
They were, and they're in the same thing. The basic design of this room is French Empire.
Sure.
The floor is a beautiful oak parquet, and the mirrored shutters raise up and disappear so that on a nice day you can open the doors and have the ocean breeze. Now remember, Oliver Belmont owned all the land down to Almy Pond.
Sure did.
We owned some of this land for a while, but sold it. And once they started building there, we put our emphasis on Bellevue Avenue. The original entrance to Belcourt was right below us here.
Correct. Ledge Road.
Ledge Road.
Ledge Road, hotly contested by Mr. Belmont.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, Oliver wanted that road to be buried so that it would.
Well,
not,
it was the
he
access.
didn't like Lakeview either.
Well,
He wanted to be like on a corner. He didn't like being on a corner lot, so he wanted both of those roads to be buried.
And he had the plans.
Yeah.
You have them,
I've
I
seen
have them.
Yeah, sure.
But the city would not give up the rights of way, and because Ledge Road was a dead end at that point, he owned one strip of land on the other side of Ledge Road, but on the other side was William K. Vanderbilt's Marble House stable, and that was Wheatland Avenue at the time. Turned to Rovensky Avenue after the Waltz King, who was at Clarendon Court, and Count Rovensky. I remember him.
Huh. That's cool. So when you were here, you said you used this as the family dining room, but not every day?
No, only for special events, and
Cool.
because there was no kitchen anywhere nearby. When Oliver Belmont had the house, the kitchen was down on Cogshell Avenue. My humble opinion, and I have nothing to prove this, is that there's a house that was owned by a friend of ours, and I never got into it to see the basement, but I have a feeling that that was Oliver Belmont's kitchen, where he could have his kitchen staff live. And they said they walked, 2 blocks to serve. He was so afraid of fire after his father's stable burned.
So his kitchen then wasn't that little building that's attached to the house now?
No,
What's that?
that was an addition that Alva put on for the servants' dining room, because she did want a kitchen here, and she created a kitchen here. I'm trying to think. The kitchen she created had a circular staircase that connected with a circular staircase here that you still have, and it went down. And she had 7 chefs. Remember, they were only here in the summer, and they did a lot of entertaining.
Yeah. I'd have 7 chefs. That
You
sounds
do?
awesome. No, I wish I mean, if I was wealthy and there was a need for 7 chefs, then I would do it.
But there was parties every single night, not all here.
Gotcha.
And they were entertained when Oliver Belmont lived here.
It seemed
he
like-
probably was never home.
It seemed like from the newspapers that Alva partied here on Wednesday nights and Sunday nights. And on Sunday nights, she did this thing called a musicale,
Yes.
where she would do like a dinner downstairs and then a musical guest up in the ballroom. And then she threw
And
bigger
whether
balls.
she did the dinner
once a year.
downstairs, is that what it said in the newspaper article that
Mostly, yeah. So it seemed like she used the courtyard a lot to feed.
I was going to say outside, because there's no evidence that she ever used what we called the banquet hall,
Sure.
other than as a coach room. But she did give away all the coaches. They all went to Bermuda, as far as I understand. And she made some major changes here after Oliver Belmont died. But before he died, she did a few things, but she respected him. And
Staircase.
the times were changed. Yeah, well, the staircase.
She tinkered with that quite a bit, the grand stair.
Had John Russell Pope, from what I understand, might have even been Horace Turmbauer as well, working on the staircase until they threw up their hands and said, "We cannot remove that big column, Alva. It's a supporting piece, and it's not possible to remove that. So we'll have to get around." But she won't want to come around.
So it's just hitting me again here. To get food into this room that we are sitting in on the 2nd floor of Belcourt, the food was cooked in a kitchen off Coggeshall and delivered to the house,
Yes.
and then probably delivered in the house from where? Probably the entrance off Ledge?
Through the main, or
through the main
maybe
door?
through the original carriage entrance with the big gates there,
and then brought up.
Yes, but
to
they
the
had
second floor.
30 people doing it.
Yeah.
Every dinner
But
was.
still, how do they keep the food hot?
Well, one of the things they do at the White House, which she may have done at the same time, was to use the music room as an warming kitchen. Well, we called it the music room, but the next room.
The drawing room, yeah.
And have everything come in from there.
Huh.
But they had mostly cold food. It was summer. So if they had
Oh,
one...
so we're making roast beef sandwiches and some
Well,
coleslaw for our guests.
more like
some potato salad.
smoked salmon and caviar and salads that are things, or pièce montée that are
Sure.
cold. Very beautiful and very decorative.
But no need to heat.
But and I think that was true of the summer in Newport. The menus in the summer in Newport had mostly cold or room temperature food.
All right, well, that solves that drama. That's cool. All right, so what about for when you guys, how did you keep your food hot? What, you must have cooked in the servants' quarters? Where you turned that into an apartment?
We didn't use this room for eating very often, but New Year's Eve, and we'd have a couple of special events. And I built a kitchen in the south wing afterwards. I said, if we're going to use this room and serve food in it, we need to have a close-by kitchen. But we had to carry everything from the kitchen behind the banquet hall, across the 150 feet, up the 40 steps, and have a large number of staff to do that. But we didn't serve in this room very often, other than a buffet type thing or pièce montée, which were 19th century style and or 18th century style, cold.
Tell me a little bit about this table. I know this table has a great history.
Well, the table has a great history. It was originally made for Marble House, made of oak, hand carved, yes.
Marble House can never have it back either.
Well, they have a Duncan Fife table in there now, which is totally out of keeping with the Louis XIV chairs.
Should I trade this table for the Duncan Fife
Yes.
table? Oh, yeah? Wow, that was a resounding yes.
Yes, because...
I asked, for the first trade I offered was Newport Preservation came over and used the first floor for a party.
Yes.
A holiday party. And I tried to make a deal with them at Marble House. They could have this table back if I get to live at Marble House for 1 month. And they said no. So that was my first trade offer.
I can understand why they would refuse that.
I think that's a fair trade.
Well, they would win by it because this is the original table from Marble House.
I know.
However, when Marble House was acquired by the Prince family, they got rid of all of Alva's furniture. It was bad blood between the princes and Alva.
Huh.
Alva made a lot of enemies.
Alva was alive when the Prince family bought that house?
Yes.
So like 30s or before she dies in 33?
Before she passed away in 1933.
So the
well,
princes,
she moved to France for the last 5 or more years.
Did Alva talk smack about their macaroni?
I don't know what she said, but I know
Is that the same
that
That's not the
she
same
left
family, right?
the United States completely.
Is that the same family?
What?
Is that the same family, the Prince family that makes pasta?
They were the armor meatpacking people in Chicago. And
they bought Marble House?
They bought Marble House from Alva. Yes. And she sold Marble House. She also sold her big house on 660 Fifth Avenue before she died. But the Prince family wanted no furniture that had ever touched Alva. And I understand from one of the servants that was around at the time that the Prince took family, Mrs. Prince particularly, smashed all of her Meissen and Dresden figurines because she said, "Oh, I got to get rid of anything that Alva had," and they put all of the heavy chairs.
Was Alva that bad? Because
She divorced William K. Vanderbilt.
that can't be the only reason why people dislike her, really. I mean, there are people who hate her. I would say that word too, hate her on Facebook groups that Belcourt belongs to. Like there are these people that attack Alva and say terrible things about her all these years later. And is that all because she
all because she divorced William K. Vanderbilt.
I think the forced marriage too with Consuelo also doesn't
Well,
make her very
that's
popular.
what, in the 1970s and 80s when the women's movement came along. However, they should
women's
look
groups,
back to
Alva helped with suffrage.
Her big thing for the suffrage movement was in Sands Point, Long Island, when she built a house especially to entertain all of the men in Congress, senators and House of Representatives.
That's
She
cool.
designed the house. She was the general contractor and had learned a lot from Richard Morris Hunt. They were quite close, Richard Morris Hunt
They were, yeah.
and Alva.
He talks quite a bit about her in the in his unpublished memoir. Says some really flattering things about her.
Because she had the money and he had the dreams, and they worked together on Marble House. And if he had not died of exhaustion in 1895,
Yeah.
she would have had him do her bedroom over here. However, it was his son, Richard Howland Hunt,
That's right.
that worked with that.
So going back to exhaustion, that guy, he did like 55 plus homes here in Newport.
Yes, but
and was,
remember,
and are tireless
he
around
was
the
in,
United States.
He was from France, or let's put it this way: he got his education in France.
Correct.
Worked with the finest of the cabinet makers and knew everybody. How could he put together 300 craftsmen to build this house, Ochre Court, the Breakers, Marble House? But
Amen.
they were all specialists. They came from all over the world.
They did, yeah.
The Scottish Masons.
He met his wife in Newport.
His wife, Catherine Howland, was a descendant of John Howland, who came over on the Mayflower.
I think Plymouth Rock is probably one of the top 10 most disappointing, monuments that I've ever been to. However,
Well,
just throwing that out there.
but that, again,
'Cause it's like a rock in a
was
cage.
legend, and a lot of it was cut away for 200 years.
Sure.
People
I understand the need for it, but
took pieces, but in the 19th century, people romanticized the Pilgrims, and many of those people are descendants that are still around now. In fact, the Mayflower Society has, I think, 1,200 or 1,300 people
oh, wow.
who are descendants of the people that came over on the first Mayflower, and my mother-in-law was one of those,
Oh, wow.
although she didn't belong to the society because
Ruthie.
Ruthie, yes, and Aunt Nellie Fuller, they always said in the family, but they weren't bold or bragging about it. It was just ancestry. Nobody has been interested in ancestry until this century, after 2000, when the collections and the Mormons started doing the research, which is what ancestry is all about. So
We went off on a tangent. We always do that, but it's good. It's a good thing.
this room,
Memorable-
the rest of this room,
Memorable moments in this room?
New Year's Eve, 1999 to 2000. If you remember Y2K and all the scares and everything, well, we said we're going to go out with a bang. We're going to have a grand dinner, and we had
Yeah.
about 250 people.
Oh, wow.
But we had a special group in this room, 24, and set the table for our family and some very special friends that came every year to New Year's Eve.
Oh, cool.
So, by the way, the world didn't stop.
No, it didn't. I was kind of disappointed. I got all excited too about it.
Well, it was a big hype for everybody, saying all the clocks are going to stop.
I remember,
Everything's
yeah.
going to stop. Y2K. No more computers. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I remember my big joke at the time was the zippers on jeans, they say Y2K, because that's the company that makes the zipper. And
Really?
my joke was that all zippers were going to stop working on Y2K. Fortunately, it didn't happen. Unfortunately.
Well,
or depending on how you look at it.
It depends on you.
It would have been pure mayhem.
It's
and
always
no one would be able to get their pants
It's
off.
always perception.
That's right.
It's
that's
always your perception.
right. Sure.
Yes, we had some beautiful porcelains in this room, and I notice you have one of them is the tall vase over there,
Yeah.
which is
It looks like it was restored a little bit by someone. Or
well,
fixed up.
almost everything that we owned needed restoration. We didn't buy at the top end of everything.
Sure.
There was always some little thing that needed to be fixed. But as I told you, the Tinney family were known in the 1940s as the finest restorers in Rhode Island.
Sure were.
And how they could get some of their things was that the people who had them would take them to the Tinneys to be restored. And they had the oldest house not the oldest house, but one of the most famous houses in Cumberland that was restored.
What should I do in here? What's missing from this room? What should I put back? What's some things that...
Well, we had the plateaus that were in the center of the table with apearn. We had some beautiful apearns. I think you may still have them. And you have the cut crystal and the angel candelabra, which were in this room at one time. But we rotated furniture as much.
I have one article that very briefly describes a dinner where Alva decorated the room, decorated with flowers to match the room's curtains, and it was green and white flowers.
Well, there were draperies in this room for a little while, and we had Aubusson tapestries over the mirrors that are gone now. But
what about some potted palms? That's in the original photo.
They were in the original photograph. There were potted palms
I
here.
think that'd be a nice touch. I could do that pretty easily, I would imagine.
Yes, and as long as you maintain them.
Yeah. Actually, I have a green thumb.
Good.
Yeah.
Well,
Plants are
getting
my
water
friend.
up here is not easy.
Yeah, I know, but it'll be worth it. Getting anything up here is not easy. That's the thing.
Well, you don't have. There was supposed to be an elevator in this house, and the place for it was where Mrs. Belmont's bedroom is now, I believe. And if you really look at the plans, you'll see. But Oliver never put the elevator in.
Huh.
And then Alva extended the circular stair down to the kitchen, which she put in. George Waterman destroyed that kitchen when he was going to have the automobile museum in here. And because he needed the access through the big gates and all of that. There was a two-story, there was a pantry on a second story that she built a little balcony around that. And there are evidences in the brick wall of where the paint was. You may still have that too.
Oh, wow.
And unless somebody painted over it. What else do we need to know
What
about
else do you want to talk
this
about in
room?
this room?
It's one of the most beautiful rooms in Belcourt.
Agreed.
Oh, Mrs. Eisenhower, when she was here as the guest of Ruth Mamie, she said, "This room is more beautiful than the dining room at the White House."
Nice.